Okay, so today we're learning Loomis method. At the top of this page you can see there's Loomis method. I think there might be an apostrophe missing there though. He was an American illustrator that was around in the 1940s, and he came up with a simplified way of drawing a face. It's kind of generic. It's not going to work for every single face every single time. You're going to have to adapt it, but the fundamental structure is more or less good, and I'll show you how in a second. So we started with our grid. If you haven't already drawn your 6-block rectangle, so this, I made this 6 centimeter and this 6 centimeter just because 6 is a nice, easy, simple number to divide by 2 and by 3. And you'll see why later. So this is 1/3 the height. Each one of these is 1/3 the height of the face, and each one of these is half the width of the face. I had cut up this poor girl's face. So if you can see, there's the first block. There's the one next to it. So those are the first top 2 blocks, is her forehead, basically. Then there is the middle 2 blocks, and there are the bottom 2 blocks. It's the chin, mouth, and so the nose sits nice and perfectly on that line there. So that's why in my breakdown here, this is the forehead, this is the eyes and the nose. Nose sits on this line, so this is the nose line. You can write it in if you want. Nose line. The mouth and chin go in the bottom here. And don't worry, we'll go through and I'll show you exactly where everything fits into this grid. Now for her face, I also want to show you this. Today we're drawing, and according to Loomis at least, this was the ideal perfect face. I don't know about that. I think the mouths are kind of big on these, but so if you look at her mouth actually doesn't fit into the Loomis structure at all, because according to Loomis, this line that's over here should be the middle line of her mouth, and her corner should be directly below her pupils. So you will sometimes have to adjust this a little bit. Mostly where you're going to adjust it is going to be the mouth area. So I'll show you how to do that also. Also, the other thing to notice is that on her face is a little bit tilted. You very rarely find a video where, or a photo of somebody with it's exactly dead straight on. Because in Loomis method, the top of the ears should be on the same line here, and her ears are above that line. So you can tell that she is slightly tilting her head down, which is also maybe why the mouth isn't perfectly fitting in. So anyway, don't worry about that. We'll get to that. Okay, so has everybody drawn this grid? Okay, so there's my ear, very simplified ear. The ear starts from this is the top of the brow, and it goes down to the nose line. And I want you to, so the next step I want you to do is to divide. So you don't need to divide the forehead up anymore. I want you to divide this side up in 3, and this side in 3, and then just from, in half. So 3 down, 2 sideways. So yeah, divide each of these blocks in half going down, and 3 across. So you want 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2. So 2 columns and 3 rows. Is everybody up to here? Yes. Okay. I know Michelle's a little behind. I'm going to give her my paper to copy. So you're going to do this and then. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw the top of the head. Okay. So you're going to take this top forehead square, the blank one, and you don't have to measure it. You can kind of just estimate 1/3 of the way from the bottom. You can measure it if you prefer. If you want to measure it, measure it. But find that third and make a little line there. And then here, find that third and make a little line there. Same here, find that third, find that third. On the top of the head, it tends to be a little bit more flat at the top than round. So it's not perfectly domed. It's a little bit flat here. If you draw the top of the head, you might see that I have some missed top of the head lines. So you can draw your top of the head and then turn the paper upside down and see where you made a mistake, kind of fix it, and then erase the extra lines. We're not gonna, the other thing is that the top of the head, it stays kind of close here for a little while before it goes through this third spot here. And again, every head is slightly differently shaped. So it's going to be a little bit more individual, and most of the time you're not going to draw it because there's going to be hair there. So just for the sake of this drawing for now, we're drawing the top of the head. Okay, so let's find the nose. So we've got the top of the head. Oh, the other thing that I want to mention real quick is your forehead. Your hairline is going to start around here somewhere. Sometimes it's going to be a little bit lower, sometimes it might be higher. But you're going to use the size of the forehead to find out how big the hair is. So if I'm drawing a picture of myself from the front, my hair is pretty flat on my head, so I can actually compare the height of my forehead to the height of my hair and say, okay, so the height of my hair is about half the height of my forehead. So you can use your forehead as a reference for how tall the model's hair is, if that makes sense, right? So you can't see all of her hair, but I can say, okay, her forehead is this big. If I could see the rest of her hair, it'll probably be up to there. So her hair is the same height as her forehead. So I could use that reference. But this is the height of the hairline, more or less. Okay, the next thing I want you to do is I want you to find these little blocks and divide them in half and then draw them 1, 2, 3 rows down. To draw your nose, you're just gonna, on the nose line, right? So on this line, this is your nose line, right? This line, the line that you marked your nose line, the one that's right at the bottom of the ear. So imagine that's my nose line, okay? You're gonna, and that's the center line, the one that goes down the middle. You can mark that tip of the nose, which is a sphere, right? Roughly, very lightly. You don't want to do it very dark because you're gonna erase most of this. And then if you want to, you can mark the sphere that's the edges of the nostrils, although you're not gonna, the bottom of it's gonna be cut off. And then your nostril, if you're looking at it from the front, it's not round, it's just kind of this slightly flared open curl almost. So it looks like a curl, and then the tip of the nose comes down, but it's not very defined. It's usually not a very hard line. And then the nostril usually kind of curls around that a little bit, maybe not that much, depending on the person, and curls up a little bit. So this is shaded at the top, shaded at the top, hard shading at the top, soft shading at the bottom. And then your tip of the nose, because it's a sphere and the light's usually coming a little bit from the top, there's going to be a little bit of shading at the bottom of the sphere. We're not going to worry too much about shading right now. I'm just kind of showing you how to get the shape of the nose. And then, so that's all you're going to draw for your nose for now. If you wanted to kind of define a little bit of the outline here, you can. Mostly doing it with shading, not so much doing it with lines. And you can always use your brush to soften up any of your shading that you need to. So if you missed the first few lessons, that's what the brush is for. It's really good with graphite for... Julie just asked a very good question. I totally left that part out. So yeah, the outlines, so these lines, the lines that you made down the middle of these 3 blocks, those mark the outlines of the nostril, the outsides of the nostrils.
As big as your forehead.
Yeah, your nose is as big as your forehead, and guess what? It keeps growing as you get older.
Oh, the eye?
Here, let's look at this guy. Nose, forehead, ear, and mouth. So,
Then a eye and a mouth.
okay, so we're gonna find we're gonna find, so we've got this, let's find the eye first. Okay, so you're gonna, this outside block, divide it in half. You just need to divide that block and maybe a little bit of the next one down to find the corner of the eye. That's good, you're doing good. Okay, so once you've drawn the outside of the eye where the eye corner goes, this one marks where the inner corner of the eye goes. Depending on the subject and how big their eyes are, usually this tear duct is going to kind of straddle this line, and the corner of the eye is going to touch this line. And your pupil goes exactly on this line. So you're going to draw the top of your, I'll do it on this side. What do I have here? 6B. So you're going to draw, so the same as this side. So I'm going to draw the top of my eye over here. It goes up a little bit more in the corner usually. And the top of it is a little bit more curved and the bottom is a little bit more flat. So just kind of roughly draw the shape in. And if you don't draw the eyes exactly perfectly symmetrical, don't worry, because nobody's eyes is exactly perfectly symmetrical. So get that curve, and then this curve is a little bit more shallow. My corner on this side is a little bit higher than this line. And the corner on this side is about on the line or slightly below it. And then I'm going to remember the tear duct is a little sphere. So I'm going to draw that little sphere and kind of finish it here. And then the eyelid goes up above the eye. Your pupil goes exactly on this line, but possibly a little bit above it. Your iris doesn't touch the bottom lid quite, but it definitely crosses above the top lid, and your iris is about 1/3 the width of your entire eye. So there's a whole video on how to draw the eye, the first class we did. So if you want more in-depth detail, please go watch that. But this is good for now. And then I'll fill this one in, but leave a little spot of light. I'll go erase a little spot of light on this side.
Okay, I'm confused. I'm not sure I got this.
Okay, I'll come check. So on my second grid that I did, this one is my eye line, right? So this one is my eye line. This one was divided in half. This one was already divided in half for the nose. I took it down. That was the corner of the nose, the outside of the nose. So my eye corners go about here and here. Okay?
There.
If everybody's...
The mouth is harder than you think.
The mouth is harder than you think, but we have a video for that, which is...
I watched the video. It's still as hard as
It's still hard? Okay. Okay, so let's find the chin first. The chin is easier. Let's do the chin first. Okay, so for the chin, you're going to divide the bottom. You're going to divide this square and this square in half. Sorry. So, yeah, the bottom, middle two squares. You're going to find midway and midway.
The middle two squares.
Okay. So now, no, that's just the chin.
Oh, this is the chin.
We're doing the chin, yeah. So your chin goes from this line to this line,
Okay.
slightly below the whole square. So it's really just that. And it's not very round, it's mostly flat, just slightly below the lid. That's just how we're going to find the jaw, how we're going to draw the jaw in. So for the chin, just kind of draw a line over here.
Could you lift up your paper?
Oh, sorry. So for the chin, you're just kind of going to draw a line from there to there, holding your pencil far back and making it slightly curved and slightly below that square.
Is it from the halfway point or the halfway point?
Yeah, connecting the two halfway points slightly below the grid.
That is interesting. That's the first time I did that. Held the pencil that far back.
Yeah, you've got, it's strange, but you have more control over it.
Yeah. Well,
We're doing the chin.
okay.
Can you show her how? So the next thing we're going to do is find the rest of the jawline. So on the second square, at the top of the second square from the bottom on the left and on the right, that's your lip line, right? So you can write lip line next to it.
This one is lip line.
Yeah, lip line next to it. It's helpful to mark them. This is eye line. This is nose line. And this is lip line. So a little bit in, and again, this is going to depend very much on the shape of the face that you're drawing, but a little ways in, maybe about a quarter of the way in, make a little mark. That's gonna draw, that's gonna, about there. That's gonna mark where the jaw structure, shape changes from going down to going in. And then also mark the middle of the the box above the nose line. Yeah, it's the fourth box up. The fourth box up. The box above the nose line, kind of divided in half. And again, this is very much going to depend on the actual person that you're drawing because the jawline is a very distinct feature that will help you show who it is you're drawing. Okay, but for a generic face, that's how we're going to draw it. So now you're going to connect this dot, you're going to connect this line from the chin with that line, but you're going to do it holding your pencil at the back in a curve.
So we're not going all the way up, we're just going to that line.
Yeah, you're just going from this line to this line. You can pass it, it's okay if you kind of go over. Roughly kind of connect it in a curve, and then you're going to connect this with this also in a slight curve.
Looks like a mustache.
Okay. Does everybody have their jawline more or less in place?
Yeah, that
Still
really.
looks like a mustache.
Yeah, you're like, wow, now it looks like a face.
No?
Okay, So,
So much like freight theater.
so at this point, you can find the lips. Now again, I find that the lips are probably the thing that is the most different on each individual person you draw. If you
Or the
look,
hardest thing.
I don't know about the hardest thing. If you look at her lips, they're about almost the same height, right? If you look at his lips, they're almost not there. Okay? So the thing that we're going to find though is the center line of the lips. And this, the lip line, is usually the center line of your lips. But what do we know about the center line of the lips? It's not flat, right? So to draw the center line of the lips on your lip line, you're going to start from the middle. You're going to make the curve in the center. You're going to make, and again, it's useful to turn your paper upside down if you're making a curve this way. So make that curve in the center. And then turn it the right way around. Make your slight, the corners of the lips. According to Loomis, the corners of the lips are directly below the pupil on this line.
Lips.
Huh?
That's big.
Look at her lips. They are nowhere near her pupil. Her corners are kind of below her iris though. Do you see that? So slightly in from her pupil. Look at his lips though. Directly.
They don't have width, they got length.
Sometimes, not always. It's just, these are just two examples, but sometimes they are directly below the pupil, sometimes they're not. I don't have any more printed out, but here's one that I drew. Corner, almost, she's got a small mouth. So her corner is about below her iris also. Slightly in from her pupil, okay?
Nice picture.
Thank you. It's an experiment.
Is her hair really that big? Is her hair really that big?
No, this is a reductive drawing technique that I'm trying and combining it with a colored pencil.
And then you can see like how it's...
I saw the background of it.
No, yeah, I started with just all shading and then I erased and added colored pencil. I don't know. I'm not sure how it's going to turn out, but we'll see. It's still a work in progress. I'm nowhere near done with it. But, so... if you look at the actual person that you're drawing, you might have the corner of the lip here, or you might have it about here, or like if your iris is here, it's going to be somewhere below your iris, most likely. So if you want to draw a slightly thinner or narrower mouth, draw it in a little bit. So you draw that curve going down, maybe it goes up and then kind of that like on its side S shape, and that's the center line of your lips. I like to draw my cupid's bow next, so depending on what kind of lips you're drawing, draw that little cupid's bow. And then I also like to define the bottom lip. According to Loomis, to put your lips in the correct position, you divide this into 3 and this into 2. I don't know about that, but you can try that. So you can try dividing this into 3, 1, 2, 3, and that should be the top of your lips. And this into half, and that should be the bottom of your lips. So that looks like a very big mouth to me.
The top lip is the third, the top of the curve?
Yeah, the top of the curve should be a third in, according to Loomis. And then the bottom lip goes there.
That's your tongue coming out. Stuck your tongue out. Whoa.
Oh, we're not even going to get started on drawing open mouths for now.
I just...
What I was just saying is, usually the top of the lip is not a perfect little arch. It's not a rainbow. Now he's got a mustache. It's like a spastic triangle. It's like... the top of the lip from the center looks more like this triangle than it does an arch. Make sense? So if I drew,
But then the outside edge is a bit more gentle.
yeah, it's not like perfectly like this, but if I use this to draw a very big lip, it's gonna look more like a lip than if I used this. This is my upper lip rather than this. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Do you think the very pretty girl has the curve?
Sometimes they have the very pretty girls. The Chinese girls love, or the Asian girls in general, they have that, they want that shape, so they'll make it with makeup, but it's not really a thing that's super fashionable in the West. Some very beautiful models do have that kind of shape. She has, it's more rounded, but still your peaks are closer to the center. Sometimes those very voluptuous lips are more plump and round. Okay. Any questions?
Yes, the bottom lip.
The bottom lip?
I'm gonna check the computer.
So the bottom lip is most of it's flat, and then it kind of curves up. So your bottom lip is kind of almost, what's that shape called? What's the English word for that shape? Is it a trapezoid? The one that looks like this? Yeah, it's a trapezoid, right? The one that's shaped like that? Yeah, so that's the shape of the bottom lip. It's the trapezoid shape.
Did you say the bottom lip was in more than the upper lip?
On some people, not always. So for the ideal face, they're not. For the ideal face, they're perfect. But yes, when we did lips, I did say that usually one of them will be, they won't perfectly come together. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's just something to look for if you're drawing a specific face. Okay, and I think that's pretty much it for drawing. Oh, the brows. We haven't added eyebrows. So the eyebrows usually go, I don't actually think I have it in here. But to find the eyebrows, you're usually going to take it from the corner of the nose to the corner of the eye, and on this brow line somewhere, so you can make that line if you want to. That's going to be the outer edge of the eyebrow, and the inner edge of the eyebrow is really just a continuance of this line, the nose to eye line. So your eyebrow is going to run between this line and this line. It's also not a perfect little rainbow arch. It's usually closer to the eye here, and you can compare the size of the eye to the distance to the eyebrow. His eyebrows are much closer to his eyes than hers. So hers here, so the distance between the inner part of the eyelid here and the brow is about the same size as the eye itself. Here, yeah, so they go up and then down. His, you can see it here, they go up and then down. I don't think we actually covered eyebrows at all, so.
Sarah, where did that second line come from?
What second line?
The arch.
The arch, we didn't draw it because I don't think it's necessary.
You've got one line from the corner of the nose to the outer, and then you've got one above it.
We didn't draw it because I don't think it's a necessary line.
Oh, maybe I
Yeah,
can see.
it's part of the Loomis method, but I don't see the point of it at all.
Okay,
So we're not gonna draw it.
okay.
Unless I guess it is useful for the shading, but not like that useful. It's not so useful that I think we need to draw it, because you're gonna mostly look at your reference to do the shading.
Okay.
So your
nose to the corner of the eye.
Mhm.
Then does it extend all the way to the corner of that box?
Yeah, I made this line from this is how I find the end of the eyebrow. So the end of the eyebrow is going to go up here, and then about this line it's going to go down, and it's going to touch that line. that's about how you draw the eyebrow. And obviously the eyebrow is not a single line. You can look at your model and go, okay, I'm going to flesh it out at the bottom and at the top. It's a little bit more in here. It's a little bit more round here. So you can flesh out your eyebrow shape. It's another one of those very defining features when you're drawing a face. Drawing how their eyebrows actually looks is how you define who you're drawing. And sometimes the whole eyebrow will be above this line. So this line is more or less where the eyebrows is. My eyebrow that I just did starts entirely below this eyebrow line, and it goes entirely above this eyebrow line in the corner. Does anybody have a question? Show you. Okay, so what I did, let's actually do that. So we're gonna go use this guy, and I'm gonna show you how to do the Loomis grid on a picture of a face that you wanna draw. Okay, so we're going to obviously start with the center line because that's the easiest thing to find. So I'm going to mark the center of his lips just by looking at him. Oh wow, his face is not even remotely symmetric because the center of his line of his nose is here. But anyway, so that's the center of his lips. So that's roughly the center of his nose. That's roughly the center of his top of his nose. So I'm going to draw my center line in. I'm marking it on 3 places, and then I'm going to draw it in. Okay? And this is where you see how the face is actually different from the Loomis perfect face. Okay? Loomis perfect face, I should say. Okay, so that's my center line. And now I'm going to measure the distance. So obviously his hairline's somewhat receded. So I'm going to use his nose. His nose is going to be my guide for how big my blocks need to be. Okay, so I'm going to say from tip of nose to, I'm using a dumb measuring system. Okay, from between the eyes to the tip of the nose is 4.5 centimeters here. So I'm going to try, if I do 4.5 centimeters, that doesn't really work for the chin. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and say this guy's nose doesn't necessarily fit perfectly into the Loomis grid either. Okay, so I'm going to go from the chin to the hairline. By the way, when I drew this pretty girl's grid, her blocks are slightly taller than they're wide. So it doesn't always work perfectly when you're drawing an actual person. So I'm going to measure from his hairline, starting from there, right, where the first hairs start. That's where I'm going to make his hairline. Down to the chin is 16.4, no, sorry, 16.4, 164 millimeters, which 164, I can use my calculator and divide that by 3. Anyone in math whiz?
38? No, 36. 3 is 6. 3 is 5.
150 would be 50.
24 is 8.
It's roughly 55 millimeters. So we're going to go with 55 millimeters. So I'm going to go 55 millimeters is there. And then 55 millimeters is there. And then I know that's 55 millimeters. Okay, so now you might want to use a right angle to draw these lines. But now you see this, his nose doesn't actually fit in onto this grid, right? So, but you've got the point is you've got a guideline, right? When you draw this grid that you're drawing onto a piece of paper, you know that when you draw the nose, it needs to be a little bit above that line. It's not on the nose line, it's a little bit above the nose line. His eyes are going to be slightly below the the eye line instead of on it. So, oh, actually, sorry, it's the brow. This is the brow line, not the eye line. Okay, so his brows are in the right place. Okay, so now I've got my 4 squares. Then I can go divide this in 3, so that's 5.5. Great. what's that divided by 3? 3, it's it's like 2, it's like 1.6, is that right? So 1.6-ish, 1.6-ish, and that's not even remotely 1.6, that's like 21. So I got that wrong. Okay, so in any case, you measure this in 3. I'm gonna use my pencil. I'm gonna estimate what a third is here. So that's about a third.
These graphs on the picture,
Yeah.
and then you draw the picture.
Yeah,
face.
that's one way to do it.
Okay.
One way to use Loomis. Loomis is really most people aren't gonna go draw this grid every time they want to draw a face. Most people are kind of you're gonna use some parts of this and some parts you won't use. Like if you're drawing a face, you might start with a big oval, and then you might go, okay, so the eyes are about halfway up this oval, right? And below the eyes are the corners of the mouth, and the nose is about, halfway between the eyes and the chin, right? So you kind of simplify it. This is just one method that you can use. Okay, so that's my thirds. I can divide this up into thirds again. And again, his lips do not conform to what Loomis seems to think lips need to conform to. So you can see his lips are above that. This cut's about halfway through his middle of his lip. But there is something else I also should mention. Cameras compress faces. It changes the way your face looks. If you look at somebody in real life and you look at a picture of them right next to them, it's not the same, right? It's slightly warped. So Loomis is designed for drawing faces from real life. Okay.
So would Loomis use this if he was like his employer?
But in using a photo, though, I remember that you said that it's okay to cheat, like using this kind of tool. And that's right?
Yeah, this is a tool that I'm using. Like I'm using, so I marked the edge of the face here, and you can see that there's a part of his jawline that juts out here by his ear. So when I go draw my grid, this part of the jaw conforms. This part of the jaw conforms, the chin does not. This juts out, this goes in. So I've got that reference. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. I can see that his ear is actually on this picture located above the eye line, and so it goes from here to here. But you've got a reference, you've got something to compare it to. Okay?
Thank you.
Sure. And then you can actually use the pupil to find the corner of the mouth, because that works on this guy. His nose is real wide, so you can see it actually cuts over into part of his eye. His eyes are a little bit closer together than on an ideal face. So you can compare it, and you can use that to go draw this face. You're welcome. Okay, so if you want to try this, like we've got another 39 minutes. So if you want to pull a face up on your phone and kind of try to draw it using the tools I just gave you for practice, you can do that. I'm here to help if you have any questions.